This is PNC RoundTable.
Hello, this is Ric DeVore, Regional President for PNC Bank, and thank you for listening to PNC RoundTable. It's on this show that we tackle some of the region's tough issues with people who make a difference.
Now here's the PNC RoundTable.
Welcome into the PNC RoundTable. Hi, this is Paul W. Smith, along with my co-host, Regional President Ric DeVore of PNC. Nice to see you, Rick. Nice to be back with you. You did a fine job without me. I was a little nervous the other day.
Well, we missed you.
Well, and I missed being with you. I'm glad to be with you now, especially because you've brought along Terry Barclay, the President and CEO of Inforum. Terry, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Paul W. Great to be here.
Tell me what's going on with Inforum lately. Bring us up to speed.
Bring you up to speed? Oh, my gosh. Well, we continue to grow, serve more people across the state. We're now in 5 markets in Michigan. And the biggest thing is we just moved our headquarters to beautiful new office space at the Renaissance Center.
Well, that's nice. Right there in the heart of the city at the Renaissance Center. Good for you. And also, since last you and I had a chance to talk, the landscape of women's leadership in Michigan has grown big time with the appointment of Mary Barra into that position over at General Motors.
That was absolutely huge news, something I wasn't sure I'd see in my professional lifetime. And we're so thrilled. She's a member of Inforum, has been on our board, and they couldn't have made a better pick. So, yes, lots of good stuff happening.
Lots of great stuff. I am sorry that she's had to deal with what she's been thrown into, right. But she's handled it with great aplomb and professionalism, and in a, I don't know how else you would handle it, but she's doing it.
She's doing a beautiful job, and I think she's getting high marks from the media, who often is reluctant to give high marks for her transparency and her candor. Yeah,
I just hope it all works out, and then they can move on with the new GM, because there's a lot that she is capable of doing and wants to do. I'm sure in her position we'd like to see her do it. Speaking of GM aside, I guess, but they can be on your list, what companies really stand out in terms of best practices in women's leadership, Terry?
Well, that's the great news. There are several Michigan companies that stand out. General Motors is the highest scoring automotive company on our Michigan Women's Leadership Index, with significant presence of women, and now with Mary, even more.
So they had it before even this happened with Mary.
They have 4 members on the board of directors at GM who are women. Extraordinary. Unusual for the automotive sector. Kelly Services, Spartan Stores, Steelcase, DTE Energy, Herman Miller, Kellogg, Perigo. Lots of great scoring companies. And then there's companies like our own PNC, who have a special certification program for employees who are experts in being women's advocates within the business.
Rick, tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm a certified women business advocate, and
I've never heard of the position.
Yeah, we have a online certification program, and really talks about selling to women in business, maybe some of the nuances that might be a little bit different than their male counterparts. And I believe I'm the first president to do this that's a male anyway, and it was pretty, quite frankly, enlightening. You know, you just in terms of different selling techniques and so forth, and then there's a recertification that goes along with that. But we're pretty active. I was thinking to myself, of my 11 executives, 3 are people of color and 3 are women, so over half. And it's pretty important when you think about, at least for us, our shareholders, our communities, our employees that we serve, and our customers. We need to be a better reflection of those groups as well. And so I think we do a particularly strong, we have a really strong offering, if you will, in that space. And it's kind of interesting. I hear people talking about things like, for instance, same-sex benefits and so forth. And I think to myself, we've had those for about 8 or 9 years.
Is that right?
Yeah,
without any hoopla, I guess.
No, and I think we're kind of on the cutting edge of some of these things. And I say to myself, wow, that's not new, but I guess it is. But we're very serious about these issues, and I think it's, again, a reflection of who we are in the market and what our communities are like. So it's really important. And, I heard a statistic the other day that Terry could maybe back me up on, but as you know, I'm a trustee at Oakland University, and I was told that 64% of the freshmen enrolled in universities right now are women.
Oh, there's no question.
And so if you think that going forward...
And 60% of the graduates are women.
In law school, in medical school, in college in general, women lead the way, which has always been funny to me, with all due respect, Terry, of all the pushes that have been on for all of my lifetime about how women, or even earlier, girls, were getting quashed in school and not doing well and all that. And all I remember is they were always raising their hand and getting the right answers. The boys were the quiet ones, but we haven't been well organized, we boys. And the facts bear out that women are doing extremely well in college and in these various fields. And there are laws that say they have to be paid properly. So I hope that's now behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wish it were.
Got some work to do there.
I know that you say that there are still some situations where there's been painfully little change in women's leadership in the top publicly traded companies in the state and nationwide. And maybe you'll tell us then what's holding women back.
Yeah, that's the thing. The playing field at the entry level is level. There's no question that it's 50-50 or better than 50-50. What's really puzzling is what happens when you start going up the leadership ranks at companies. Because in the last decade, and Paul W., you and I have had this conversation over the last 10 years, women, the progress of women at the senior most levels of companies has only been roughly 2.5 percentage points. So now women are between 11 and 12% of the top officers at companies. So something pretty dramatic happens along the way there. And I think it's a pretty complicated picture. It's not just about families and having children.
We have some time.
We've got some
We
time.
have some time if you want to delve further into it, if it's not just when they break off to have the children or the family or whatever.
Yeah.
And certainly there are many women who choose to stay totally involved in their careers and forego now having children and families and such. What else is it?
Well, there's recently what the research points to is a complicated little thing called unconscious bias. And that is, I don't think that there's anybody who wakes up every day anymore and says, I'm going to go into work and I'm going to discriminate against somebody. I just don't think that happens.
You would hope that can't possibly happen.
Yeah, I don't think that happens. And there's lots of companies who wouldn't allow that to happen, like PNC and the others that participate in this research. But what I do think happens is that we do wake up and go into work. And if we're looking at promotions and we're looking at two equally qualified candidates, I think that's when we start to listen to our guts about who's going to make the best candidate. And unless we're careful, I think what our guts tend to say are mini-me's, hiring somebody that's a lot like me and my value system, because I really believe that that's the candidate who's going to do the best job. I'm just trying to do the best thing for the company and hire the best person. And that's why what the research shows is if you start to be deliberate in your thinking about this, and if companies start to cast a broader net, a wider net to get candidates in place, that then you will include diverse candidates of all kinds, and there will be a better chance of diverse groups also getting promoted up the ladder. I think that's our next challenge. To make no mistake about this, at the current rate of change, it would take 170 years for us to mimic at the top levels of companies what we see at the entry levels of companies, because there is a rich, diverse pool at the entry levels.
Even playing field at the, as you just mentioned, Terry, even playing field coming in, but then something happens along the way.
At our firm, that we have women in roles, head of marketing, head of HR, and head of communications, which maybe as some people view as kind of a traditional role. But what I'm proud about at PNC is the head of our capital markets, the head of our commercial real estate, and the head of our commercial lending are all women. And I think those are, not to diminish the head of marketing, but I think those are extremely important role models for our younger women, at the bank. And they're running a business. And some of these businesses are huge. I mean, our commercial real estate group has assets of about $38 billion. I mean, that's the size of a decent-sized bank.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I'm starting to see a lot different change. And I hate to call HR traditional, but
No,
you know,
I'm nodding my head here because I think you're right on target. Women have got to be positioned in the positions that have P&L profit and loss responsibility in order to gain real credibility as they move up the ranks. I think that's really, really important.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about this. Terry Barclay, President and CEO of Inforum, and Inforum Center for Leadership, the education and research arm of Inforum, focusing on the leadership development for women. And when it comes to the training programs, what is the difference? Is there a difference between how men and women develop as leaders?
Yes, there is a difference. And what we find is that women get farther faster, interestingly, if they have the opportunity to go through some leadership development experiences on a gender-specific basis, because we find that there's a safety that occurs in that kind of an environment where they can really let down their hair, take in the information, and come out stronger and better as leaders. Lots of times the same behavior in a leader is interpreted differently based on gender.
Oh yeah, based on gender. Yeah, we've all heard that. Yeah,
we've seen that. So when you think about it, a key element in whether someone gets promoted or not is how they show up at work. What kind of presence do they have? How are their non-technical leadership skills perceived, and how are their relationships? And women have to go about that just a little bit differently than men do in order to be credible and powerful leaders. We have a different set of expectations. I bet you Mary Barra could write a book on that about now.
Oh, sure.
And so I think that when we give women a chance to practice those skills in that safe environment with themselves, what we see is that they come out stronger at the end. So that's just one of the things that we can do to lessen this gap.
Mm-hmm.
Mary could probably also write a book on crisis management right now,
Yes.
too.
I'm thinking there are a few books that she could write about now. And there's been that ongoing debate in the news on equitable pay. Are we not living up to what the law, in fact, says we have to do?
Well, the equitable pay, I've gotten a lot of questions about that because it's been very much in the news with the President's initiative and other things. The data is that women earn 77 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man earns. It's 84 cents on the dollar if it's adjusted for hourly or hourly wages. But I think that the whole equal pay issue distracts from the broader question of why is there a concentration of women in lower paying jobs? Because when we see that pay gap data, what it's really reflecting is that women are concentrated in lower paying jobs. And that's across industry, in every sector and in every type of company. And so I think it's further complicated from social norms that place a different set of expectations on women when it comes to child rearing, right? So the challenges around inflexible work hours, the need for access to high quality child care, the list goes on. So I think the equal pay issue is a complicated set of issues. It's very, it's a charged issue when you say, oh, women only earn 77 cents on the dollar. When you dig a little deeper, you find that some of that is because they're concentrated. You're dealing with averages, and women are really concentrated in lower paying positions.
Rick, you may remember this, and Link Bessert, who is sitting next to us here, is an athlete and would know, because I don't follow this stuff. I just know that there was an athlete recently who took time off to be with his wife when they had their child.
Yep.
Right.
Who was that? I'm not sure. Was he a baseball player? I'm not sure. But anyway.
Oh, I remember.
He was.
It was a baseball player.
Baseball player.
He was
ridiculed.
Roundly ridiculed and criticized. And all he wanted to do was be there for the birth of his child and to be there with his wife the first few days. And he was lambasted. I mean, talk about there still being a difference between the way we interact and react and expectations of a man and a woman in childbirth, as you mentioned a moment ago. We're apparently, at least in sports, a million miles away.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I think there is some of that. We our males get 2 weeks family time when the birth of a child. And I think you're right, though. I think there's still that undercurrent sometimes of, well, you're not really going to take that right. Nod, like some kind of manly thing or something. In the case of my son-in-law, our grandson's being born in June. He's taking it. I would.
Yeah.
I would have taken it all day long when my kids were born.
If that
But
were
see,
available.
But Rick, it's going to take men like you. You know, when you just said you're the certified women's business advocate at the company, it's going to take people in your leadership role to send the message to everybody. It's okay to do this.
Yeah, I really. But there still is that though, that people drag that around.
It was
right?
just so people who know, because there were people yelling at us online here with the answer, and Link just provided it. Daniel Murphy was the New York Mets second baseman.
That's it.
Who really very calmly deflected all of the, sadly, talk radio criticism of his decision to miss the first 2 games of the season for the birth of his first child. You know, he missed 2 games. There were only 140 more to go. You know, so God bless him for doing that, and I hope that that helps more men in all different walks of life decide to do that.
Well, and there was a backlash, and I think that they subsequently apologized.
Yeah, some of the guys who came on really strong.
Yeah, you're right. That was fodder for talk radio.
It was. And then people said, well, maybe it was okay. Meanwhile, Terry, several countries in Europe have actually established quotas as a way of moving the needle for more women on corporate boards. Now, we just went through this whole thing in Michigan for the University of Michigan, and we know about all of this and how the courts are looking at it. You can't be fair by being unfair to somebody else just to make up for the unfairness in the past, affirmative action, et cetera, et cetera. But what about this? The way it's working in Europe is these quotas for women on corporate boards. What are your thoughts on that? Any movement in the United States for this sort of thing?
Well, I know people are watching what's happening in Europe closely. I don't think that we will ever have quotas in the United States. Certainly, we at Inforum would not support the establishment of quotas, but because I don't think we need them to make progress. This is for the presence of women on corporate boards of directors, and we see that we have a number of companies right here in Michigan who, without quotas, without any kind of pressure of that kind, have managed to get a critical mass of women on their boards. The qualified women are out there. I think that companies need to be encouraged to broaden how they define qualified. Rick made a very important point earlier about how there are women at PNC who are leading major divisions, millions, billions of dollars. In many cases, women are leading divisions of companies that are larger. Those divisions are larger than the entire companies that the men are CEOs of. Mm-hmm. But there actually was a research that was just released from Russell Reynolds that shows, but we still tend to look for the usual suspects when we go for corporate board seats. And by usual suspects, I mean people with the CEO title. So if we can just get over everyone on the boards having to have the CEO title and tap some of the people like those at Rick's company who are leading major divisions, we will have the diversity.
You know, it goes back, Terry Barclay, you put it so well, with this unconscious bias. And I'm going to go back now. I'm going to go back in time when I was starting out working in radio. Didn't make very much money. But the guys who were family men made more money. It's just the way it was. Mm-hmm. Well, Paul, you're single. You don't need the money. Well, I do the same job, and in fact, I do it better than this guy. Yeah, but he has a family, so he's going to get paid more. That was that was just the way it was. I couldn't go and complain. I couldn't sue. I couldn't do anything. It was either work there or don't work there. And then I go back long enough, 45 years in broadcasting, it was mostly men. And you know, when women started coming on the air, you know who complained the most? Women. It was women who would call up and say, I can't stand her voice. And in television it was, why does she fix her hair that way? I don't like the outfit she's wearing. It was women being rougher on women.
Sure.
So there is an unconscious bias that we're evolving away from, but we're obviously not out of it altogether.
Yeah, no, we aren't. And I like the whole idea of unconscious bias because it's unconscious. We can't, it's not...
Somebody's not trying to hurt somebody.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And once we talk about it, then maybe we can become conscious about it in a forum just like this conversation here with our PNC RoundTable. Hey, history is being made in the great state of Michigan with 4 women running for Congress.
I know. Think of that. So we all know Debbie Dingell is running for John's seat. Brenda Lawrence is running. Pam Burns in Tipton. Candace Miller's running for re-election. Of course, Terry Lynn Land is vying for Senate. So we could, if all of those people win their races, we could double the number of women from Michigan. Which isn't saying much, but wish it could be more.
I was so excited until you put it that way, Terry.
But seriously, a number of great women candidates. I'm sure that at least some of them are going to win, and we will make progress because in Michigan state legislature, we're at a 20-year low in terms of the number of women that are there. So we need to get more women running for office.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know how many United States senators are women. Maybe our friend Link can look it up for me or something. But I don't know the answer to that.
He's doing fabulous research on the fly here for us.
I was actually with Debbie Stabenow the other day, and I think there's a considerable number of women that are in the United States Senate now.
I could think of a number off the top of my head, but
maybe 20, 18, 20, something like that.
We're going to find out.
This is going to be a test.
We'll find out shortly. Terry, you've been on the front line of women's initiatives for as long as I can remember. Nonprofit leader in Michigan for 30 years. What have been some of the moments that you find especially inspiring?
Well, without question, when the announcement was made that Mary Barra was going to be the CEO at General Motors, that was, I got a little misty-eyed because knowing Mary and knowing her incredible skill and commitment, that she's just going to be great in the job, and it certainly is a first.
It was great to see somebody who certainly earned this job, got this job.
It's great to have an engineer running General Motors, That's a good thing, right?
I think, Paul, you make a really good point, though. It's great that versus somebody plucked from another area, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but aerospace or utility or something, and an out-of-towner. She's an in-towner and an engineer and came up through the ranks. I think it's a lot better than if you just...
It's in her blood. It was in her father and in her blood. Yeah. So it's as it should be. Research information is coming our way right now. Who said 20?
I said 20.
You said 20.
Is it 20?
20 women in the Senate. How's
Very
that?
good.
Lucky guess.
Good to keep your job for a week.
Actually, this is your job, so good for you. The rest of us, we don't know. So 20 in the Senate and 79 women in the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So obviously strides are being made, and Michigan would have a big, big presence if this could work out. For in this case, that you just mentioned. You mentioned the Mary Barra thing.
Yeah.
That was spectacular. That's one that stands out. Anything else?
Oh yeah, there are more. Just the thing that people don't know about that sort of inspires me and keeps me getting out of bed every morning and going to work is the stuff that happens behind the scenes. So it's the stuff you don't hear about. So Inforum, for example, has been instrumental in helping 12 women in the last 18 months, 12 women find corporate board seats. That's those for-profit paid board positions.
Wow.
Where we know everyone's very involved in the nonprofit community, but rarer are the for-profit board seats. So that kind of success and momentum gets my attention.
I didn't even know Inforum was in that quote-unquote line of work.
Well, we are pretty quiet about it, but we have become very much, and it is formally part of what we do, a go-to resource. We're not in the placement business, but we are in the strategic connection business. So if, people come to us, my phone rings, we're looking for whether it's a volunteer leadership role or a corporate board role, people with these qualifications, can you send some people our way? We do that, and we have a number of women who are very actively looking for for-profit board seats as well, and that's the kind of thing you don't kind of broadcast, right?
Right.
Well, we just did.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you.
Yeah. Well. So those kinds of connections that happen behind the scenes are very heartening.
How does one go about joining Inforum?
You can go to our website, which is inforummichigan.org, and you will find all of the information you need right there.
Is it Inforum Michigan because there are Inforums all over the country in different states?
There is an Inforum in California, so that is why we have the Michigan on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Inforum, INFORUM, Michigan.org. And this may sound ridiculous, but do you have to be a woman to join?
You most certainly do not.
I am a member.
I'm going to say.
Rick is a member.
I should have known. I should have known.
Hey, he's a guy who gets it. So,
I was actually a member of, there's a group called CREW, which is Commercial Real Estate Women. I was a member in the early 90s.
Oh, come on. You can't be a member of Commercial Real Estate Women.
Well, they made me one at one time. And in fact, we just supported them through our foundation last week.
Yep.
So it's a smaller group that's just involved in real estate matters, but no, I get Terry's emails all the time.
Well, excellent.
More than he cares to, but that's good.
I've been listening.
Now, tell me, in the time that we have left, Terry Barclay, President and CEO of Inforum, and you can go to inforummichigan.org for more information and to join. You were saying at the beginning of our conversation, you've just moved into great headquarters in the Renaissance Center, which I haven't looked, but if you look out our window, you should be able to see it. Yep. So would you be able to see us in the Fisher Building, or are you facing Canada, or what can you see?
We have panoramic views of the Detroit River as well as the city. So, yes, we can see you from our perch. We're on the 21st floor of Tower 400. It's phenomenal space that Vivian Pickard and Mary Barr and our friends at General Motors made possible for us. And it's transforming how we work.
How so? How is it transforming how you work?
Well, we do a lot of work in the leadership development world. We have seminars and classes that we put on. We're now going to be able to do some of those on site in our facility, which we've never been able to do.
You had a small little place before?
We had a small little place, wonderful space in Midtown Detroit, in the Detroit Medical Center, but we now have 4 times the space, so we're able to do that. And you can imagine, we put on 1,100-person events, and our poor event manager was trying to do that out of a little cube. So she is a happier, saner person these days because we're in this space. But I will also say this: since we've moved, I've hosted a top official from the Pentagon. I've hosted 2 other top leaders from out of the state of Michigan, in our space. And they're wow. They come into the space.
That's something.
They're impressed.
They take you more seriously.
They take our organization more seriously. They take Detroit more seriously. Yeah. They take Michigan more seriously. And we have filled the space with the work of Michigan women artists on the walls and furniture that is designed and made by Michigan companies, Steelcase and Herman Miller. And so it's really a source of pride when someone comes in from the Pentagon and you're able to say, everything you see around you is right here from Michigan. It changes how they view us, the city, and the state.
It does matter. And Rick, every morning I go by on I-75, your PNC building, and that's impressive.
It's quite a landmark. It's one of the better billboards in Oakland County.
It's a great billboard.
When the letters are lit.
Yeah, you get calls from all of us. Yeah. From all of us. Rick, hi, it's Paul. I know it's Sunday, but I just want you to know the N is flickering.
Especially from the pilots who all land at Troy Airport.
Oh, do they tell you?
That's their landmark, which scares me, actually.
It should scare you a little bit, but having broadcast from that facility, it's impressive, and we have to realize that first impressions and all impressions really do matter, and that's kind of why things are going so well in the city of Detroit now, with everything that's going on, with the reclamation of some of these fabulous old buildings, that instead of knocking them down, we're able to repurpose them, fix them up a little bit, as Dan Gilbert and his team have done, and others. But it's a wonderful, spectacular result that happens. That's all of the city of Detroit right now.
It really is. Paul, I would be remiss if I don't bring up the fact that Terry is a trustee at Cranbrook Science Center.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm bringing that up is they're our partner for our Women of Vision exhibit starting September 14th. And I've said this a few times, but our exhibit, which is, I have 3 goals for this. One would be the obvious display of the art, and that's really important. These are the National Geographic photographers, the 10 most famous women. But then when you think about the exhibit, Women of Vision, it's really kind of a metaphor for what we're talking about, which really has to do with women in business and what their vision is. And it sounds like a metaphor. I guess it is, through their lens, through their eye. And then we're also going to use that exhibit also for some outreach. We're going to have some fun with it. We're going to, quote-unquote, partner some young ladies from Detroit Public Schools with some young ladies from Cranbrook, kind of a shoes concept where the person from Cranbrook takes photos in Detroit and vice versa. We're going to display them, have a little fun with it, maybe a little reception for the parents and the caregivers. But that's all kicking off in September, and Terry's a big part of that. And Inforum, kind of a natural, right? Because of her trusteeship. So it works out really well.
Where can people get more information about this?
Well, that will be...
we'll have some up on our website.
Right.
As soon as we are able. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
PNC.
WJR is our media partner on the radio. DIV is on TV. And then it'll be on our website as well, and Cranbrook Science Center's website.
Women of Vision, the 10...
It's actually
most
it's actually 11. I had that wrong. It's 11 most famous female photographers, and it's
their work is incredible.
Are they all National Geographic?
Yes.
They're all National Geographic,
right.
and trust me, it is tough to be selected as a photographer by National Geographic.
I bet.
Yeah.
So their work spans the globe, everything from nature to some challenging social issues. They're just their work is phenomenal, and the story behind their work is phenomenal.
Well, God bless you both and your organizations both for supporting this. Remember, you can go to inforummichigan.org. Terry A. Barclay, the president, CEO, Inforum Center for Leadership, founder, really. Because I remember from the beginning.
You remember, you were there.
I was right there. And, of course, regional president Ric DeVore of PNC. He is our co-host of the PNC RoundTable. I'm Paul W. Smith, and I'll be talking to you in the mornings on News Talk 760 WJR from 5:30 till 9. Go on out and make it a great rest of the day.